Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about our next What to Watch show during our confinement during the pandemic. It's Firefly. After this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd. Years ago, when Gene Roddenberry pitched Star Trek to CBS originally and then later NBC, he called it Wagon Train to the Stars. The idea of a space western was something that Star Trek was supposed to be, and many people, even as Star Wars came about, said that Star Wars was very much like a space western. Well, Joss Whedon took this idea and took it to its logical end, where we have a space drama that's also a Western. Now, he claims that it was never intended to be a Western, but it does have so much of that feeling to it that it is irresistible in that it covers two what have become TV tropes. And to put you a little bit into the backstory of this series, which is only 14 episodes, it was picked up by Fox many years ago. It only aired 10 of its episodes, not in order, so it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And it became a cult favorite. And since then, it's been rerun in order with its missing episodes. It has a DVD collection of its TV episodes. And while it didn't run long enough to develop the characters the way they intended, there was a lot more depth in it than you would expect in this short a series. Essentially, Joss Whedon said that the whole premise of the show was 9 people looking out into the darkness of space and seeing different things. So we have our main characters. There are 9 people. Our main character is Malcolm Reynolds. He's the captain and owner of the Firefly ship called Serenity. It's named after the Battle of Serenity, which is a battle that he participated in a rebellion against the Central Authority of the time, kind of a futuristic civil war, if you will, in which he was on the losing side, one of the brown coats. The whole situation happens about 500 years in the future when civilization overpopulated Earth and moved by sleeper ships, generation ships probably, to a different star system that had a number of habitable planets and the technology for terraforming. And so we have no star drive, no faster than light travel, no laser beams. In fact, there are not very many space fights in this series at all. It all happens with still handguns that shoot bullets and things that happen on outer worlds. Our group of people are on a ship basically so they can get a job and sustain themselves. If they do not live among the haves of the central planets, they're poor and scraping by for a living. And there's also a lot of crime out here too, because like the Old West, there just wasn't a lot of authority out there. And so the Serenity becomes kind of a smuggler's ship, and they take any kind of job that they can make some money on and get their next meal. Now, the other passengers aboard the ship, some of crew, are for all specific purposes. Of course, Zoe, who is the second in command, is the person who was at Malcolm's side during the war. He was a sergeant, she was his corporal, and they are now serving together on the ship. She is a very loyal first officer. Following that, there is Wash, who is the pilot of the ship. He's married to Zoe, and while he is not much of a warrior, he is kind of a dreamer, but also a very good pilot, and manages to get them out of scrapes and provide much of the jokes in this. As any kind of Joss Whedon show is, there are a number of situational jokes and plays upon words and invention of terms such as shiny and garum and various other words that not only take the place of swearing like they do in Battlestar Galactica, but things that just are slang, that we use words that don't have any real meaning beyond their slang, and they do that there as well. Also, assuming that China and the United States were the dominant superpowers that eventually got together, their culture is very much a mix of Chinese and American mix. And so they conveniently do most of their cursing in Chinese. And you'll see a lot of stylistic things, such as clothing, that go anywhere from American Western to Chinese samurai picture. It is kind of a mix. We go on to other characters. There is Jane, who was a mercenary who was hired on basically to be the muscle for the ship. They every once in a while get into some tussles and need people who can fight, and so Jane is the person there. Then we have Inara, who is a companion, kind of a cross between a geisha and a escort. But in their society, she is of high social standing, and it helps them in order to get some things that they need or to make passage to places that they need to go. Then we have Shepherd Book, who was a paying passenger, but also a preacher of sorts. And he has kind of a mysterious past that's revealed little by little. Unfortunately, the length of the series does not allow us to figure out exactly where he came from or how he knows what he knows. But he provides kind of a moral center. Also, there's Kaylee, who is kind of the heart of the show. She is the chief. She is the ship's engineer, and also is kind of a love interest to the next character, which is the doctor. And the doctor is a paying member of the crew who brings along his sister, who is being sought by the central authorities. She apparently was a result of a number of brain experiments, and it's left her kind of schizophrenic, but also having some extraordinary powers that sometimes are a threat to our assembled crew and sometimes useful to them, sometimes both at the same time. So Dr. Tam and River Tam are those two characters. Kaylee, the engineer, makes kind of an effort to get the attention of the doctor, who is so much out of his element, he does not really understand what's going on, it seems. And that about rounds out the 9 members of the crew. They manage to stay together due to common interest. They have to survive, and survive that they do. And because of the overall budget and general direction of the show, we don't have a lot of futuristic things. I mean, there are some things, but they are so commonplace the way they're treated. You don't stop and think that this is anything unusual. They have, the ability to fly through space, but and all the planets have oxygen and there's terraforming, but they don't go into any of the technology really. It's all about stories about human beings who are flawed and trying to get by and trying to get one up on each other, generally speaking, that our crew interacts with. And it's an entertaining show, and in 14 episodes, you can binge it in just a couple of nights, and you'll be a brown coat yourself before it's all done. So I recommend Firefly. It is available here and there, and whatever way that you can get yourself a copy of it or a viewing of it, it'll be worth your time. So I'd like to know what you think about it. Let me know in the comments. And of course, please remember to subscribe and to click the bell to know when the next video is going to come. We'll figure out something else to talk about next week, see if we can find something else that's worthy of your science fiction watching. Until then, don't go far.